I'm adding something to my layout that I have never had before, and it's going to change my operations. Plus, I've got a lot of work done on my layout, and I'll show you guys what I've done. Hey everybody, it's Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. It's time for a layout update. This video is brought to you with support from my patrons on Patreon. These videos would not be possible without them, and if you'd like to join the Patreon community, you can follow the link in the description below and join for as little as $1 a month. Progress has been ongoing on the layout, and I'm really happy that I'm getting to the point where I can really run quite a few trains with scenery. It's really starting to bring the layout alive and make it a lot more fun. And this includes a section that I've finished as well as what I have been working on. One thing that has been slowly but surely going on is ballasting the entire railroad. Now, I have not just had the time to sit down and ballast the entire railroad all at once. One reason is that obviously I just don't have the time right now to sit down and do it in one sitting, and the other is that I'm going to have different styles of ballast in different areas. Case in point, you can see right here in this shot that the ballast I did for the yard is different from the ballast that I did on the main line. So I still have to figure out some things before I start laying ballast, especially around the industries, but just a lot of ballast work has been going on. And I've got the majority of the railroad ballasted, I just have to do the industrial area in the back. Now, after I ballasted my track initially, I wanted to add something to make it a little bit more realistic, and that is adding gravel in between the lines of Kato Unitrack. And I got this idea from watching a video on DJ's Trains. He is an engineer, and he gives a lot of great tips for realism with your model railroad. And basically, what I'm doing here is what he called walking ballast. So I'm smoothing it out and flattening out the yard by pouring in this Woodland Scenics gravel in here, and this makes it to where in real life the crews that are working the yard, they don't have to walk up and down extremely rough large gravel. The smaller gravel, the smaller ballast is what this is representing. So I'm putting this in between my tracks right here. I also realized that I had no way for a car to actually get into the yard area, so I made a little gravel crossing right here. Still has some work to do in terms of the actual part with the track, but I got the gravel up to the rails. And then after I had all that, I just sprinkled some Scenic Express dirt all over this just to kind of weather it a little bit, make it a little bit dirtier, just give it a more dirtier tint to it. And then it was just on to continue ballasting the main line, and my goal for this time was to get all the way up to the industrial area. So basically get the rest of the main line ballasted, minus the double crossing right there, that where the road will cross over into the industrial area. But everything else is what I wanted to get, and I achieved that. Now, if you're looking for how to ballast Kato Unitrack like I'm doing right here, I've got a couple videos that I'll link at the end of this video. Once you get ballasting done, you can really start filling in scenery like I did in this little corner right here. Pretty straightforward scenery right here. I do plan on putting some trees here, but I have this little 2-aspect signal installed right there just as a kind of a midpoint signal for the other double crossover that's on the other side of the layout. And I just do some basics before putting in some trees later on. Now, a lot of you have asked if I was going to do static grass on this layout, and the answer is yes. Static grass is, in my opinion, the best looking grass that you can do on your layout. It takes a little bit of work sometimes, but the results are just absolutely amazing. Static grass is basically these tiny little fibers that can be charged with static electricity, and they are charged through a static grass applicator. And what this basically does is it causes them to stand up on end, and when you do this in glue, it's going to hold that standing position once it's dried, and you get a nice coating of what looks like grass, and it's really, really great. Now, these static grass applicators, they come in several different varieties. Woodland Scenics makes one, but you can even make your own out of some inexpensive electric fly swatters. I've seen people do that, but a lot of them have a little cup that you dump your static fibers in into, and then you'll put a little screen on it, and then you'll just shake them over your area with a metal rod that's attached to a wire that comes out of it that you put into the glue that you are using, and this essentially causes the charge to go through, and then you can shake your static grass over there, and depending on how high you hold it, it will stand straight up. You want to be relatively close, and you also want to watch out for little static shocks. I know I have shocked myself on several occasions with these. It doesn't hurt too bad, but you definitely want to watch out for getting shocked by this thing, because it is static electricity, and it's some pretty powerful static electricity. But you can see them in this shot where the little fibers are standing up as I shake them into the glue. Once that is done, I will go back and put some bushes and some overgrowth on top of the static grass, just to kind of break up just the monotony of the one color right there. There are different colors of static grass you can do. I'm blending the colors with just some ground foam and that kind of stuff, and then just have this one color of static grass, and that works fine for me. But you can mix and match different colors. You can mix them in your applicator, but this method works just fine for me. Another thing that I did was continue to add my tree canopy to my hillsides, and the reason that I'm doing this slowly is because I actually ran out of black polyfill and I had to order some more. But if you want to see how I do this process, especially with several other tree making methods, I've got a video on that I'll link at the end. But this is just a lot of rinse and repeat, making these puffball trees and covering this hillside. I'm nearly done covering hillsides with these puffball trees, but I had to wait on some more polyfill to come in. So that's the majority of the scenery work that I got done, but that wasn't everything that I did. If you watched my video last week on how to do some wiring hacks to be able to make to where you can easily install different electronics projects that you are doing for your model railroad, I'm actually using those techniques to install a couple of electronic setups for turnouts and signals under my layout. And what I'm doing right here is I'm just wiring in an on-off switch so that it's easier to turn these on and off, so I don't have to unplug them every time. But then I take them and I have that wooden door, and I just have one screw, and I'm just going to screw that right into the base of the layout, and then it's just a matter of taking all of those different connections, and then we will just plug them in using those audio jacks that I showed you, as well as the barrel plugs. And one thing to make sure is don't power it on until you have everything connected, because you could potentially do some shorting. There's not much risk in this setup, but just make sure that you have your power off when you're connecting and disconnecting. I then had to solder some extension wires onto the little push buttons that are going to control the turnouts, so that I could then thread them through the fascia board where they're going to be mounted, so that I can control those turnouts. I then measured, marked, and drilled a couple of spots for the two buttons for this particular setup, and then I ran the buttons through and finished them in place. I haven't permanently secured them yet. I'll probably do that with some hot glue. I know that you see that these have the little screw, like the nuts and bolts that you can use to hold them in place, but there's a 1x4 right behind this, which makes it hard to run from the other direction. The biggest addition to my layout, and you've seen this already if you've checked out my YouTube shorts, is this maintenance of way train. And basically what this is a train that goes out and works on the railroad. And what I'm going to do with it is going to be something that I never thought about doing before, but you can see this right here. I think it's really cool, and I got some ideas of how to use it from watching some other YouTube videos and seeing how they work in the real world. It's powered by this Atlas-8 number 8345, and then I have this side dump car that's Norfolk Southern Orange of their maintenance of way colors. Then I have this old Southern gondola from those Bachmann starter sets that I stuck an excavator in to represent some equipment. I then have this orange ballast hopper car for dumping ballast, and a Bluford Shops caboose that will act as an office on the go. Now, how am I going to use this on my railroad? Well, basically, I'm going to do more game style or gamified operations rather than going purely prototypical. I think that this will make it a lot more fun for me, and when my kids get old enough to operate it, it'll be easier to understand and it'll be more fun. But basically, this is going to work like a challenge or a chance card, where this thing could be something that you draw and you don't know what it's going to be. There's going to be several places it could be on the layout or places it has to move on the layout during your operation that could cause some delays and things that you have to work around. Now, this could be placed in an area where there's double track main and it's easy to work around like you see here. But it could be a situation where it has to be on the single track main and it's going to make it hard to work in that particular area. And I'm going to have a little egg timer or something that shows how long it has to sit there in order to finish whatever it's doing and then head back, and then you can access that area again. But the maintenance of way train is going to be something that is, I think it's going to add a really cool element to my operations. Maintenance of way. It's going to be a big part of the way that I operate my layout. I'm definitely going to be doing more of a gamified operation rather than pure, strictly prototypical. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to find some ways to involve you guys and my Patreon community as well. So if you do want to join that Patreon community, check out the link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading.